ton to dig into from the first full weekend of NFL preseason games. Let's bring in right now my friend from the NFL Network, co-host of The Insiders, which you can watch tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on NFL Network. Mike Garafolo is with us. Mike, let's start out there in your backyard. Yes, nice. Well, that was a couple of applauses right there. Yeah, that worked. Your backyard. The Giants, it's been a journey to get here at the quarterback position for them. Obviously, early returns, first time out. It's one preseason game, but Jaxson Dart looked pretty good. What's the reaction out there?
Yeah, he's had a good couple of weeks here. He had a strong week in camp. Was it last week? I don't know. They're all running together, Tom. It was the second week of our it was the second week of our inside training camp coverage. So, like any rookie given a chance, wow, I am bald in the back of my head. Wow.
You really made a mistake. Do you want to turn the TV real quick, Mike, so we don't have to look?
No, because it may fall off of here, and we'll just deal with it. He, like any rookie, took some time to get adjusted, and then really hit his stride when Judy, Baldy, and I were there. We had a chance to sit down with him, and it's my first time really. So I hadn't been over there in the spring. It was my first time to really get a chance to talk to him and meet him, and you just get a feel for a guy sometimes, and I was very impressed. And there's that level of calm and in command, and the way you have to be as a leader in the building. The entire quarterback room there has just done a 180, and there's a lot of personality, there's a lot of confidence, there's a lot of swag, and I include Jaxson Dart in that. So for him to go out and be as decisive as he was, get that ball out quickly. The one touchdown, the little Jordan Humphrey, he had a guy right in his face. He knew he was going to get hit and was willing to sit there and take it. I mean, these are the questions that you've got for a guy coming in out of a Lane Kiffin system. Can he read it? Does he have enough poise to stand there and go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4? And the Giants, really, from the time they drafted him, obviously felt like that was something that he could do, even if he wasn't asked to do it that much in college. We saw a little bit of that. We've seen it in camp. I think it's about as good a start as you could imagine if you're the Giants and Jaxson Dart. And part of me, nobody said this to me, but for Brian Daboll to come out the start of training camp day one at that press conference and make it clear Russell Wilson is QB1, I think somewhere in his head he thought this kid could have a big preseason. He could have a big camp. We want to start the season with Russ, so let's make that clear now before anything happens, kind of getting ahead of that one.
Now, how long does that last, Mike? Because when they draft Jaxson Dart, and part of my understanding of the thought process of why Dart over Shedeur obviously was talked about a lot, but any of the other quarterbacks that they could have drafted, part of it was the layers to his game, the mobility, the fact that he could move, he could get outside the pocket. You talk about Daboll's history with Josh Allen, Daboll having the best version of Daniel Jones we've ever seen back in 2022 before things kind of went sideways there. Russell Wilson at this stage of his career is not that guy. He's not threatening you with his legs. He's not able to extend plays the same way. How patient can they be here, or is it strictly dictated by, hey, if we're winning, we're going to leave this guy in there?
Yeah, I mean, you look at their opening schedule. It's at Washington, at Dallas, then it's home against the Chiefs and the Chargers, if I'm recalling correctly. Then I think it's the Saints, and then it's like Eagles. Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Eagles, at Broncos, at Eagles, San Francisco. I like San Francisco, too. I think Judy and I were sitting there and trying to figure out, well, do you want the kid to start at home? Like, could the San Francisco game be – because you figure in that stretch there – I think this kind of sort of gets turned on its head if they go to Washington week 1 and win that game. I think that's going to change a lot of things in a lot of people's minds. And they did play them well last year. Probably should have beat them down there in Washington. That's the game they didn't have a kicker because got hurt in pregame. So they're going to have to start to steal these games. But you look at those first 8 weeks and it's like 2-6, 3-5. Yeah. I mean, like at some point you go, all right, we appreciate what Russ is doing, and he's got some example that he's showing Jaxson there. Because look, I mean, we've taken shots at Russ and people have poked holes and they feel like, some of the stuff is corny. We've heard all that stuff with Russ, but he's a competitor. He does things the right way. He's a professional. He's got confidence in himself. He's got confidence in his teammates. He knows how to lift people up. Like Russell Wilson coming here, even if he does not get off to a great start, or the team doesn't get off to a great start, because I'm not putting just the wins and losses on him. Even if the team doesn't get off to a great start, I still think this is going to be a good contribution for this team in the long run, and certainly for Jaxson Dart as well. So that's that cluster of 8 games to 9 games is what I'm looking at and saying, unless they start to steal some of these games that I just can't see right now, I think that you get Russ for the first half of the season, and then maybe you turn it over to Jaxson Dart.
The Jets had their own quarterback situation to figure out in this offseason. It was pretty apparent very early on it was not going to be Aaron Rodgers as a part of the program. When Justin Fields comes in, and they make it's like a 1.5-year commitment, right? But it's bridge quarterback money. You're wondering about, what exactly are you getting here? Clearly, they didn't feel like we need to make this massive commitment. He's going to be the guy for years to come. But despite being, pronounced dead at the scene during practice when he stubbed his toe there a couple of weeks ago here, you watch him in that game, like that's the good Justin Fields. I know they're not scheming up in Green Bay, but when he's able to extend those plays, running for the touchdown, like that's the guy who you at least go, okay, we know how dynamic this guy can be. How do we kind of build this offense around what he does well in the passing game?
Yeah, and I think the Jets have a lot of talent, so I hate to say this, like it's this roster that's just bereft of talent, because there's a lot of guys there that they hope are going to be part of, and they've started to extend them. I mean, with Garrett Wilson, deal done, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson's another guy that they really believe, Will McDonald, that they believe is going to be a big part of their future. So it's not like they don't have the makings of a roster, and they can turn this thing around relatively quickly. But in the meantime, you get yourself a quarterback, a chance to reset himself. Aaron Glenn knew how dangerous he was because he had the game plan against him when he was with the Chicago Bears. And at the very least, if things aren't fully clicking offensively, he can do stuff with his legs. He can get out there and escape, and he can get out there and create some havoc. And who knows? Ideally, if you're Aaron Glenn, it's a Jared Goff type situation where everybody goes, okay, here's your bridge quarterback. And he winds up being your guy. And then you don't have to use draft capital to go out and find another guy, and you can use that to build around him. So I think that's the pie in the sky hope here for Justin Fields. But in the meantime, it'll keep him competitive. Aaron Glenn wants to win games here. It's not like he's going in and saying, let's go 3-14 and get a high draft pick. He wants to win as many games as possible. He doesn't care. He'll figure out the rest of it later on, which I think is the right approach. When you're coming in, you want to set a culture and set an environment of winning, an environment of what you expect. So I think the Jets are going to be entertaining. I think the Jets are going to be fun. I think the Jets are going to have and the Giants too as well. I mean, I at this point every year, I like to point out to people, I don't like to point out to people, I just happen to, that there have been 2 playoff games in the history of MetLife Stadium, and only one of them has involved the teams that actually play there. The other one was the Super Bowl. So I'd like to have some playoff games here that I can drive 15 minutes to. And that's with traffic, by the way, to get to the stadium.
I thought it was interesting just in talking with Aaron Glenn, too, because there's 2 schools of thought. You could be, hey, we're not talking about the past. Every question you get, every time in the meetings, Aaron Glenn is absolutely talking about the past with the Jets. Like, he's told players, this is the recent history. This is how long the playoff drought is. This is what we have to overcome. And frankly, they did the same thing in Detroit when he was there with Dan Campbell. This Jets team is probably, to your point, more talented than that Lions team was at the same point in the process. And they got to hope that, or the Lions 5-21 or something like that out of the gate. You're hoping maybe you can ramp that up a little bit quicker. Mike Garafolo is our guest. You were also at the Ravens-Colts preseason game, which we're all still, at least I am, like tantalized by the Anthony Richardson talent. And you watch just his highlights. There haven't been as many as you'd like, but the highlights, him running the football and the big arm and those things. But, like, if you had asked me before the game, like, what do you think's the most likely scenario what happens? I'm like, I don't know, he misses a blitz pickup and gets hurt. And literally, that's how it played out. Daniel Jones now gets the opportunity here. You were around that team a little bit. What do you make of where they stand right now in Indy?
Which now, like, the plan going in was that Anthony Richardson would start and get the bulk of the action the other night. And then it's like, boom, he's out. Daniel, you're in. And I asked Shane Steichen about it after the game. I said, you're going to have to now look at week 2 and say, okay, I got to adjust and give Anthony Richardson more time in week 2 because he didn't get it. He said, yeah, he's probably going to have to do that. So is that unfair to Daniel Jones because he sort of went in not expecting to play that much, and maybe not that you game plan much in the preseason, and maybe that's a good thing. Maybe they want to see, how he adjusts and how he adapts and he doesn't complain and all that, which he won't. I mean, that's Daniel Jones for you. So I also, coming out of that game, thought to myself, we've had a quarterback, Justin Fields, that you just mentioned, with a dislocated toe, a quarterback with a dislocated pinky, and Anthony Richardson, and both were day to day. Like, to me, you don't talk to me for like 2 months. I don't want to hear anything on either one of those. If I have any bone come out of a joint. I don't want to hear it. But these guys, as we're reminded year in and year out, are tougher than we realize. So look, I think Richardson not picking that up, and Steichen was asked about it and said it about as nicely as he could. You got to see that. And that ball's got to come out, and it's hot. And not just from a completion standpoint, from a don't get knocked on your back standpoint. You can't have Ojabo running free like that. And especially with some of these pass rushers that you're going to see throughout. And that's part of what we've been talking about. I mean, you could say a lot of things about Daniel Jones. I don't think that that's the kind of stuff that we've said over the last couple of years. It's just been a matter of, is the top end talent there? Is the ability to fit it in? Is the confidence to do what he needs to do? Because they with the Giants, they kind of pared him down and said, okay, year one with Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka and Shea Tierney was like, let's just like shrink the field almost, especially when you're on the move, and just kind of look here and don't worry about that. Focus here, make the best decision here. Then they went to expand it, and it didn't work. And Darren Waller comes in. It's like, we're going to be this big explosive offense. And he never was that guy. So I think for him to win this quarterback job, it's got to go back to being, let's just make the best decisions and let's prove that I can be as a quarterback in charge of the whole operation.
It's been a wide open competition. That was made clear back in the spring. It seemed, just in talking to people through the offseason, like Daniel Jones may have the leg up just because coaches know what they're getting in him, but you still have the low floor, high ceiling aspect with Anthony Richardson. The ceiling's out there still. The guy hasn't played that much football. It's just the story of his career to this point has been it's hard to get better at football when you're not on the field playing football. You also have a competition in New Orleans. We'll see how that shakes out. Yesterday was a mixed bag, to say the least, with Tyler Shuck. And then you got the one in Cleveland, Mike. We're going to be talking about this one until I know Kevin Stefanski kind of hinted today that maybe he'd make a decision after this next preseason game. You went through there. You were in Berea. You got the full experience. I talked about it off the top of the show. I was struck watching that preseason opener in Carolina, and the fact that the cameras had people in Shedeur Sanders jerseys in a road game to cut away to after every single one of his completions. This is now like this larger cultural phenomenon inside that building. How are they looking at Shedeur and the way that he fits in right now as a rookie fifth-round pick into the broader quarterback plan?
Yeah, I think it's been a little up and down in camp. To come out and play the way that he did in a live game, though, I think was huge. And I think sometimes you get these guys where maybe at a workout, a pro day, or a showcase. That's what it was called. I was searching for the word, the Colorado showcase that they had back in the spring. And you start to analyze it from the way the ball looks and the way that he's doing things on air. Sometimes about playing football. And this guy has shown the ability to play football. And maybe you should weigh with what you see in a live game a little bit more than what you see in practice and what you see with those reps. So I think it's been tough I know it's been tough for the Browns coaches to kind of get a read on who's working with the twos versus who's working with the threes, because that's the way they sort of had to split it up when Kenny Pickett was down. So you'd have Dylan Gabriel with the twos and Shedeur with the threes. Obviously, you got a better supporting cast when you're working with the twos than when you're working with the threes. So I think that's been a factor in camp, and they've sort of assessed it and weighted it that way and understand what each guy's doing when they're given a certain amount of reps. So I think he played well. I think he did everything he needed to do in that game. And now you build on that. And we see what Dylan Gabriel can do. What's Gabriel's status today? I didn't see anything. I think he's starting to sort of still on the mend.
Reintegrating into team drills. Kenny Pickett not yet ready to reintegrate into team drills, which then, again, like if you're Kevin Stefanski, you're trying to figure out, all right, I need to see Dylan Gabriel at some point in game action. Is 3 days of practice this week, 4 days of practice enough to put him out there? Do I need to see Joe Flacco? I'm actually creating a bigger issue if I play Joe Flacco, who we know what he is, in the preseason, and then something goes wrong and a pass gets bad and it's picked off, and now everyone goes, you're an idiot if you don't start Shedeur. Like, these are real things. Nobody's worked through more than Stefanski in his time as Browns head coach in terms of, total chaos, including at the quarterback position here. But it's an interesting situation to handle because you have to adapt your plan, much like the Colts are. The difference is here you got four guys you'd ultimately like to see figure out what they are.
I find it interesting that the Browns didn't bring Joe Flacco back last year because they didn't want him hovering over Deshaun Watson. And now you may have a Shedeur Sanders over Joe Flacco type, which is not going to affect Joe. I mean, nothing's going to affect Joe at this point in his career. It's just going to be a conversation that the fans are going to have, that the organization, that the coaching staff might have to listen to.
All right, so I'm going to ask you this, Mike. We're not big prognosticators on the insiders, but You got a good feel for this. Week 1, who are we talking about as the Browns starting quarterback?
Joe Flacco. There's no question. There's no question about that. I've thought that from the beginning, and I haven't wavered. This team's trying to show that they were not the team in 2024. They're more the team in 2023. I think it's going to be tough to get back to that record. I think you're going to see something a little bit closer to what we saw in 24. But to have Flacco there, you know how it is this time of year. You can walk into any camp and convince yourself that this team's actually going to be pretty good, and they've got some talent. It's the NFL. It's a salary cap era. Of course, every team has talent. It's just a question of when the holes start getting poked in the depth chart because of injuries, which team is still going to be able to stay afloat and which team's going to have its lack of depth exposed. So as long as you got a team with, Myles Garrett, on that side of the football, good defensive players around him as well, by the way, and an offense with a good offensive line, a veteran quarterback, receivers that can make plays, David Njoku at the tight end position. Like you said, go, okay, yeah, I can see this team winning some games. It might be tough to kind of sustain that, especially when you start to suffer some injuries. But I think Flacco's in there. I think like they feel like they're going to be a lot better than people are prognosticating.
And then if it's not Joe Flacco, if at some point you go to the bench, are you going to Shedeur or are you going to Dylan Gabriel? Or are you going to Kenny Pickett? I can't imagine Sue Putley is going to be around, but who knows? Deshaun Watson still rehabbing. Yeah. There's so much going on right now in that room. A couple more minutes here with Mike Garafolo from the NFL Network. There's also a unique situation here within the NFL where a decade ago, hold-ins were not a thing. They're still not really a thing under the collective bargaining agreement. This is completely a thing where certain teams have decided we're going to allow it to happen. Certain teams fine guys if they refuse to practice. You're not getting the big fines for being a holdout. But right now we have 4 situations, Mike. Micah Parsons in a public standoff with the Cowboys. You have Trey Hendrickson in a public standoff with the Bengals. Terry McLaurin and the Commanders. James Cook and the Bills. I will just ask you this. Which of these is the most baffling situation in your mind? Because all of them on some level are things that you have to be surprised they've gotten to this point.
They all feel the most baffling is they all feel like easy deals that, Tom, you and I could sit down and do. I feel like that. Seriously. We can get it done in 5 minutes. And I've always sort of felt that. It's like, well, there's no reason to rush it if you don't have that pressure point of the start of camp, the start of season, whatever it is. And at this point, it's going to be the start of the season for a lot of these things. But I just like, they're all baffling. I mean, Micah is the most baffling. That's the easy. I'll take the low hanging fruit because you know what the numbers are. You got to bite the bullet. And at some point, you just got to get it done. And why would you even get this guy to a point where he's entertaining thoughts? And I also don't think, like, the trade request came in and I was like, okay, fine. Because that's another thing, right? We've sort of become accustomed to all these things. That's, you hold in. If that doesn't work, then you fire the trade request. And I know that a lot of people around Micah and who know Micah and who have talked to Micah believe it's legit. It's not just like, watch this hollow thing. At this point, he's so upset with the lack of communication. And that's what, show me my respect. Well, what they usually mean is the money. In this case, it's show me the respect. Like, I told you to go contact my agent. Why haven't you guys done that? And there has been at least some communication between the agent and the team. But, like, there's a lot of people at the team that they talk to. And it's like, okay, no, I'm not authorized to really have negotiations. It's got to be from Jerry, or it's got to be from whoever Jerry authorizes to have those discussions. So there hasn't been anything that I would actually even call communication, because until they're actually negotiating a deal, who cares if it's just checking in and just having a brief conversation? So that's the most baffling one, because why wouldn't you just, okay, let's just have some communication with the agent, even if you're not ready to pay the price and you want to drag this thing out for who knows why. At least have the negotiation, at least have the communication, and show him the respect that he deserves.
That's the part that gets me, is it's not the fact that the Cowboys are dragging out another high-profile negotiation. We saw it with CD last year. We saw it with Dak last year. We saw it with Dak the previous time around. This is their MO. But to not even call the agent, we're sitting here, it's August 11th. One of your best players has requested a trade. You have not made an offer. Like, the conversations back in March, Jerry to Micah. Micah said, I don't want to be held to that right now. It's 5 months later, and whether it is pride or it is just this isn't how we're going to do business, or You want to stir up interest in America's team, the Gambler and his Cowboys, debuting next week on Netflix. We'll be at the premiere of that tonight out here in Los Angeles.
Is that a promo read for the Gambler? Is that what you just picked up?
Yes, it premieres August 19th. Produced by Skydance Sports. It's going to be on Netflix. We're going to the premiere tonight.
We're going tonight.
The Egyptian Theater. We're looking forward to it. Maybe we can bring Jerry and Micah together there. We can solve this, Mike.
Good on you guys. But I'll tell you this. Jerry doing what Jerry's doing is probably a better promo for the Gambler than what you're reading right there, right? Like that's all part of the whole deal. So he gets it. And I think that's at least a little part of this to continue the conversation in that regard. I just like at some point, are you playing with fire to the point of where he goes, you know what? No, I'm legitimately pissed off and legitimately trade me because I don't even care about that. We're not there. And I think in the end, it can be mended and done relatively quickly. It's just got to happen.
It's a gamble. And speaking of gambles, America's team, the Gambler and his Cowboys, debuting on Netflix next August 19th, which is next Tuesday. Mike, thanks a lot for the time, buddy. I will see you on the Insiders tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time on NFL Network. We appreciate it.
Oh, I'll be there.
Can't wait.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.